Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Rick and Morty season 4. Let's talk about it. So I'm actually pretty nervous to be reviewing this series because to me, Rick and Morty is a pretty difficult show to review. It's a very unique standalone show filled with unique standalone episodes in this anthology format. So it's difficult to find the connective tissue that kind of brings these episodes together so that you can have an analysis of the series overall. But I guess what I'm going to be doing is looking at the ratio of episodes that I really enjoyed versus episodes that I wasn't such a huge fan of. Maybe looking at some character arcs in this season. I don't know. We'll make it up as we go along. But before we get into it, just be warned that this is going to be a spoiler review. And whilst you're here, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you can catch new uploads. So without further ado, now let's get into this review. So first off, let's go through some of the character arcs that were explored this season. Now, like I said, when it comes to Rick and Morty, this anthology series is mostly driven by these individual adventures with Rick and Morty and co. And I really enjoy that aspect of the show. I'm personally the kind of Rick and Morty fan who doesn't really look for a lot of connective tissue when it comes to the episodes. I know some people want these overriding story arcs throughout the season and they want to see more of the evil Morty and all of those storylines that haven't really been fulfilled yet. But I'm one that's kind of going along this journey, having a fun time with the quips and the quibbling and the intelligent writing. I just love that aspect of Rick and Morty, so I'm not really pressed when it comes to the overarching story arcs. Like, we'll get to them, I'm sure, but it's not really something that is a priority to me when I'm watching this show. But anyways, there are still some character arcs that we can sink our teeth into. First of all, of course, we have the character of Rick himself, the shining star of this show. As I said in my recent video of MVP TV show characters, this character is one of my favorite characters of all time. Easily. But whilst I may love this character, we see in this season that there is a further exploration of his lack of self-esteem and self-hatred, which is very interesting. In particular, in the pooping episode where he has this whole planet where he likes to go to the toilet and it is invaded by this random guy who he manages to make friends with, kind of, his version of friendship anyway. And it does show how alone Rick is and how isolated he is in his genius because he isn't able to connect with people. He doesn't allow himself to connect with others. You even see in that episode that there is this huge facility where Rick keeps the people that he doesn't want to kill but doesn't want to make friends with in these like incubators, and they're living their best lives in their mind, but in the meantime they're just kind of floating around in this liquid. And that guy manages to break out, but eventually he dies and Rick actually mourns his death, which shows that he is capable of building friendships and building relationships with others. It's just that he's very reluctant to allow himself to do so, and he's just sinks into this depression at the end of that episode, just showing how isolated and alone he is as the holograms kind of taunt him. So I think that's kind of an overarching theme when it comes to the character of Rick. Whilst he talks a big game, deep down he does have insecurities. He's still a human being, and even though he has these godlike powers, there are some things that even them can't solve, that being the loneliness and the isolation that comes with knowing that nothing really matters in his universe or any other universes, and having that infinite knowledge about the universes that he has seems to be a burden to him more often than not. Whilst that is true, at the same time what's becoming more and more clear is that his relationship with Morty, as well as with his other family members, especially Beth, are actually becoming fortified through these adventures. I love the fact that this family kind of just accepts the crazy existence that Rick lives, and even though Beth does try to introduce some rules, some structure into their household because things are running amok and she can't allow it to happen for any longer, there needs to be some sort of boundary. And at the beginning of the season we see that she's trying to introduce them and Rick is very reluctantly following them. We do see that by the end of the season, Beth is able to create this whole world, this whole civilization with Rick. And I think it was pretty cool to see Rick and Beth working together in that episode and to see how similar Beth is to her father. It kind of makes you wonder what she could have become if Rick had decided to guide her and mentor her as opposed to just abandoning her. And that's something that also carries over to the 10th episode where we see alternate Beth. I won't call her clone Beth because we don't know who the clone is in the end of that episode. episode. So just alternate Beth is out here in space living her best life. And it was so cool to see this version of Beth going out there on those adventures in space and being this kind of Rick equivalent character. She's been given the freedom to pursue whatever the hell she wants and live out those adventures the way that she wishes she could, instead of being kind of anchored down by her family and her life on Earth. And even though we don't know which Beth is the original Beth, well, actually none of them are the original Beth, because Rick probably had 1,000 original Beths at this point. Like, he left his entire world behind in like season 1 in the Cronenberg episode, so we don't know how many times he's done that. We don't know who this original Beth is, which I think is another reason why I didn't really care to know which one was the clone, because none of them are the real Beth. But anyway, there seems to be a Beth that he has become emotionally attached to, the one that stayed at home. But it was also interesting to see how the one who went to space ended up being pretty much a Rick 2.0, showing once again that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, like I said, Rick has definitely become closer to his family members as the seasons have gone on, even though he's still not willing to go into therapy for them. Absolutely not. That's where he draws the line. But of course, the main family member that he has gotten increasingly closer to is Morty. I've absolutely loved witnessing the evolution of the relationship between Rick and Morty, and I love how much more jaded and cynical and pessimistic Morty has become as a result of just being beaten down and pushed over through all of these adventures. And whilst I love the character of Rick and I love the fact that Morty is becoming more like him, it's definitely a two-way street. They're both influencing each other. I think the fact that Rick is starting to connect more to his grandson has made him a bit more open to other friendships and relationships, and maybe a bit more introspection to how he has treated people in his life, especially his daughter Beth, as we saw in the final episode. He even developed a bond with Jerry, which we saw when he erased Jerry's memory so that he could forget whatever it is that they saw in that machine when they were looking into that talking cat's brain, that cat that kept insisting that they don't ask questions. It's like, don't ask questions, just go with the flow. What the hell? Who are you? That cat was sketchy as hell. But I was so curious to see what they had seen. Like, what made Rick so shocked? He was horrified. Like, we have never seen so much emotion from this character. He was horrified at whatever he saw. What would have made him react in that way? I'm so curious. Like I said, when it comes to this series, I'm a bit more forgiving when it comes to having this overall story arc and connective tissue that brings all of the episodes of the season together. One thing I do like to see build and develop throughout the season are the character arcs, and I definitely think that this show continues to do that. It continues to build on the characters, including the character of Jerry, who's become very self-aware. He knows exactly who he is, what he is. We saw that in the final episode where he said, literally, my whole purpose is to say, hey, and then do nothing else. Like, he knows what's up. Having said that, I will say that I am somewhat disappointed that we didn't get any follow-up when it came to the evil Morty storyline. Just one little episode, just one little peek into that storyline would have done me good, but unfortunately there wasn't really much of a suggestion as to the direction of that story, so I guess we're gonna have to wait until the next season. We did get a cameo from the character in the Story Train episode, which is one of my favorite episodes of the entire season. And in fact, let's just get into that. Let's go through some of the episodes that I think really stood out in season 4 and some of the ones that I was a little bit disappointed by. Now, I'm not going to be saying the names of these actual episodes because it would sound dumb. Coming from me, it would sound stupid. So we're just gonna do descriptions, okay? So that you know what I'm talking about. So my favorite episode of this whole season easily is the heist episode. I love the heist episode. It's not really because of what's going on, but it's the way that they did it. It's the meta commentary. I love the meta commentary of this show, just in general. So the ones that are the most meta are the ones that just they're so clever. They blow my mind. They are so clever. Are you kidding? That scene where Rick walks into that crowd of people in that convention and they're all booing at him and he's like, your boos mean nothing. I've seen what you cheer for. The fact that I can quote that, I can't quote many things from films or TV shows. The fact that I can quote that line, mwah, truly genius. His one-liners are, legendary. That's so good. And in that episode there were so many of them, and it's the same thing with the Story Train episode. That whole episode was just genius to me because of course they were playing into story conventions and writing conventions, which I'm sure the writers are very well aware of. And they were also subverting the expectations of fans who of course wanted to see things like the continuation of the evil Morty storyline, etc, etc. They were just like, no, we are just going to do whatever the hell we want. We're just gonna try and do it the best way that we know how. I think it was such a clever way of using that meta commentary to directly address the viewer, all of you annoying fans. And then they took it one step further. First of all, Jesus is the savior. Jesus is the savior of this episode, and so nihilistic Rick, he can't be accused of being offensive because he literally saved the day. What's offensive? There's nothing offensive about it. Then as a cherry on top, you have a commentary on capitalism right at the end there, and then they drop the bomb that they are fully aware of the quarantine situation. So it's just like a double. Beautiful. Loved it. I love that episode. I was also a big fan of the Vat of Acid episode. That name I actually can say. It's just such a clever show. It's so funny and it always feels right on the pulse. I recently talked about Space Force and how that show didn't really land because a lot of the jokes just felt off and felt really irrelevant. With Rick and Morty, they always seem to know. They are in it with pop culture. They're in it with fandom. It makes for such a clever, refreshing show. Now, like I said, whilst I do like this show, there were a few episodes that kind of let me down. The dragon episode, that was weird. That was very weird. Listen, I'm down for weird, okay? I watched the show, of course I'm down for weird. But that dragon episode was the orgy at the end. What? With Rick and his grandchildren? No. The Children of Mort episode also wasn't my favourite. I liked the aspect of exploring Beth and Rick's relationship and how similar Beth is to Rick and what could have become of her if he actually guided her through life as opposed to abandoning her. But other than that, the B and C storyline with Jerry and Morty and Summer was just kind of irrelevant. Like, it wasn't really my favourite. And finally, the Snakes episode also wasn't my favourite. That joke kind of ran its course halfway through, but then it just kept going. I was like, what? This can't be the whole episode. I think especially because it was episode 5 and it was the last episode before they were going to take that break for part 2 of season 4, and we didn't know when they were going to be coming back. So I was just like, how are you leaving me with this? Please no. Overall, I really enjoyed season 4 of Rick and Morty. It just keeps getting hilarious to me. I know that for some people, the fact that there isn't a lot of continuity between these episodes frustrates them, and they want to see more of the overarching storylines like Rick's origins and his original family and his original Beth and what happened with evil Morty and all of that stuff. I'm really interested in seeing those storylines being fulfilled as well, but for me, that's not the priority of this series. This series is there to make me laugh. I love the humor, I love the social commentary, I love the meta commentary and the animation as well. The animation has gotten so crisp this season. You can really tell that it's just clean, crisp lines. So with all of that said, I'm going to be giving Rick and Morty season 4 an 8 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Rick and Morty season 4, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this series down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.